Excellent. Good evening, everyone. Hello. I'll try that again. Good evening, everyone. Oh, there's people here. And hello, everybody online. Welcome to the August Monday night workshop. Let me just do a quick little thing. How many people are here from the last Omega 1 that we just finished in July? There's, yay, let's give them a hand. They survived. Everybody on Facebook, how many people are from the last Omega 1? Yay! Anyway, thank you all for showing up tonight. Just a quick little reminder, we have a satsang program that starts on August 17th. That's not this Thursday, the following Thursday. That is our latest program that we've added to the Omega collection of programs that we deliver. It's probably one of the most spiritual ones that we do. It's meditation, contemplation, journaling, and it's all done non-verbally. So you're also unplugged and disconnected from the world. So we ask no phones, no internet, nothing. You just show up and be. We ask that you stay on site for this one. It starts on a Thursday night. We go all day Friday and all day Saturday and half the day on Sunday. Staying on site provides a good environment so that you're not going back and forth from the work world back into a meditative state. And the thing that's beautiful about this site right here, Franciscan, they do 3 meals a day for us. So you'll have 3 very healthy meals. They very, very good. They know I'm a vegan, so they really go out of their way for us. So they'll do vegetarian food for everyone, or just any other kind of food. You meat eaters. Oh, I'm kidding. And then, like I said, that'll be on the 17th. And then the next thing that we're doing in August is the 23rd will be our Wednesday workshop. Now, the Wednesday workshops are the ones we started fairly new. What we're going to do is we're actually not going to meet in a physical location. That's going to just be live. It seems like we have more people attending online than the actual space, and it costs us, I think, $75 or $80 a night for this. So we'd rather save the money and just do it online. I thought we'd also try it. We'll have one where you actually can come together and one where everybody just joins online. So that'll be Wednesdays now. So the Wednesday's the 23rd. This 23rd. I had moved. Thank you. The 23rd is the Facebook. I don't know how you call it. What is it? Viral? We'll go viral. Is that what it is? Live. We'll go live, but this is live. So I get confused with that. But anyway. So that takes care of everything. Hello, there's one seat up in the front. Haha. You have to go all the way to the front. So there's one seat, and that was the one thing that I wanted to mention was the Wednesday workshops will now be on the video instead of actually being here in person. So thank you all for everyone else for showing up tonight, this evening. Tonight's topic is, why is self-knowledge so important? Has anybody ever asked yourself that question? Like, what's the deal? Why do we search for self-knowledge? No? I have. Like, what's the point? What's the point in self-knowledge? So I wanted to just mention a quick little quote from Gurdjieff. His name is George Gurdjieff. It says, without self-knowledge, without understanding, the working and functions of his machine, man, cannot be free. He cannot govern himself, and he will always remain a slave. I love that idea of the fact that we are slaves. Most of us don't like, hello, come on in. You're gonna need to grab a chair though. Most of us don't recognize how much of a slave we are and what it means to be a slave, which we'll talk about in just a moment. I wanna tell a brief little story. Most of you know I love Manly P. Hall, and he has a book called The 12 World Teachers. And in this book, what they did is they went through and tried to discover what human beings made the greatest impact on the planet from their existence, from the time of their birth to the time of their death. What kind of impact did they make? Did they change the course of humanity at all? And one gentleman was called Akhenaton. Akhenaton was, he's actually called the beautiful child of Aten. So Aten is actually, I forgot the lineage. I want to say King Tut or King Tut's father. I can't remember the exact lineage there. But he was a young pharaoh. So Akhenaton was a very young pharaoh. As a young pharaoh, he experienced a meditation that actually altered himself and the course of Egypt for a very short time. He altered the course of Egypt. At this time, Egypt believed in many gods. They had a god for water, a god for food, a god for the crops, a god for rain. I mean, they had a god for everything. One morning, upon one of his meditations, he was looking out at the land, and he recognized that the sun was not only shining on his kingdom, but on the land outside of his reach. That means the sun actually was shining on his enemies as well as his own territory. And he had this inspiration when he was thinking about equating God with the sun and how it's omnipresent and everywhere and affects everything. And in this awareness that he had, he became aware that God sheds light on everyone without favoritism. So not just his kingdom was bountiful from the light and the heat of the sun, everybody was. And he had this idea that if God was everywhere, that means peace should be everywhere. He equated God, love, and light all together in peace. And if God was everywhere, that means there shouldn't be any war or peace or violence on the planet. That's not what God's will would be. Now remember, he's a pharaoh in Egypt, where the country believes in many different gods and idols, and he discovered omnipresence, one being. He believed in that so much, he changed the Egyptian religion to omnipresence. For a very short period, Egypt believed or followed the idea of one God. As a matter of fact, he moved the capital of Egypt from Cairo to a smaller town. I cannot remember the name of the village, or the city. And they built temples in honor of just this one God. He called the god Ra. That was the idea. It was the rays. So he called it the god Ra. So in that, with that one big experience, knowing that there shouldn't be any violence, he also did one other thing that was unheard of. He laid down his weapons and refused to fight. He no longer engaged in war because he believed it would be against what God thought. It would be against, if everything's supposed to be love and beautiful, why would I increase that violence and aggression and death? So he did not fight. Unfortunately, that led it to his demise because the enemies came in and he didn't fight with them. So, and then that ended up, I think he ended up dying, if I remember correctly, he was very sick, young pharaoh. But this awareness transformed him, and it transformed Egypt. I also think about the profound experiences that he had, and can you imagine the courage and the conviction to go against the entire culture of a nation? One man who says, no, I believe in this so much, this is what we're going to do. He had such strength and courage and conviction. And I think, to me, courage and conviction comes from self-knowledge and self-awareness and discovery. We discover our courage when we discover ourselves. I'm going to just throw that out there. I'll come back to that. The awareness transformed to Kenaton, and like I said, it's probably one of the most simplest and easiest things to understand about self-knowledge. So he became aware of the idea that he was not being loving and benevolent the way the omnipresent would want him to be, so therefore he changed. Once he had the awareness, he changed. Had he not been aware, he would have continued on just like all the other pharaohs. He would have just continued on with living, with idolizing many idols. Does anybody know what the name of that is? What does it mean when they idolize more than one god? Polytheism, thank you. So, what exactly is self-knowledge? This kind of sounds like a no-brainer. Knowledge about yourself. I mean, duh, self-knowledge, knowledge about yourself. Knowledge about myself. Now, this is more than just the easy details. For example, my height, my weight, the color of my hair, my origin. That's just the physicality of me. That's knowledge. Everybody has that. And I think this is also accurate. Since we all have different height and weight and origin, that means we all have different levels of self-knowledge. So everyone has different levels of understanding ourselves. We have the heritage, my medical history, my work history, even romantic histories. As a matter of fact, my daughter just bought a car. She's buying her very first car of herself. And so I was sitting there recalling the cars that I had. Like, I remember my very first car was a gold laser, Chevy Laser. It was a little sports car. And then I went to a Pontiac Grand Am. Then I went back to a sports car. I think I did, I went to a Chevy Blazer. Then I went back to a sports car, which was a Cavalier. I think it was a Z24 Cavalier. Then I went back to an SUV. I seem to have a pattern here. And now I'm back to a sports car again. But that's the history. So that's self-knowledge. I have self-knowledge, the history of my vehicles. So we can have self-knowledge about the physicality of myself. I also have self-knowledge about on the emotional level. So the emotional levels that I have self-knowledge about love. I understand love from my perspective. I also understand pain from my perspective. I understand happiness and sadness. I understand fear and joy, doubt and faith, success and failure. Through my emotions, I know I can relate to people, and through my emotions, I know people can relate to me. So I have the recollection of that. All of that is self-knowledge. All right, I'm aware of that. That's delightful. Then I have the mental aspect of me. Now, in the mental realm, it's not just that I'm aware of the facts and figures, but in my mental realm, it allows me to recall any event that I've lived in my life. I've recalled it in my mind. So in my mental level, I can replay things. Now here's where it gets a little dangerous, because I can replay them through my own filters. And when I replay them, they may not be as accurate as when it really happened. You know, I've often, or you've heard me say the idea that when there's a car accident, the police officer usually interviews all of the witnesses instead of just one, because everyone sees it differently. So the more I replay an event in my mind, the more, let's say, tainted it would be, because it's filtered through my perspective. I read this funny meme the other day where it said, in the shower, in the morning in the shower, 3% of that is washing themselves, 17% is singing out loud, and then 80% is winning imaginary arguments. And I thought that's fairly accurate. A lot of people just replay things in their mind. I would have put that in the car instead. I'm having the imaginary arguments in the car. But that's what we do. We relive them in our minds, and every time we relive them, we're changing them just a little bit. We tweak it just a little bit. We tweak it just a little bit until it's not even real anymore. George used to tell this very funny story of how he used to sell life insurance. And after about a year or so, he was brought back in and they had him do the spiel, the whole sales pitch. And he was dumbfounded on how far he had strayed from the original pitch. That's what happens to us. We can stray. So with the mental level, though very beneficial, it can be a little bit of a detriment. I can recall events in my life, exciting and dull moments. I can recall every risk I took and actually feel the risk inside of me as if I'm reliving it. The thing about the filters, this is a funny thing too, it can be challenging because sometimes when I recall my event and somebody I'm recalling it with recalls their part of it, it turns into a he said, she said. That's not what happened. No, this is what happened. No, that's not what happened. And then you get into the little debate on who's correct in the actual event of what had happened. That's why I like having an iPhone. Sometimes I secretly record things. And then I can play it back and say, no, this is what you really said. I'm kidding, I don't do that. In my head, I do. But that would be nice, wouldn't it? We could just pull it out. No, this is what you really said. Actually, I saw a preview for a movie called Circle, I think it was, with Anne Hathaway, I think, and, no, not Anne Hathaway. It was Tom Hanks. It was the idea that they were visually recording everything in your life, and so that you can't get away with anything, and they had cameras hidden everywhere. That was a little freaky. Anyway, so back to the idea of the mental. The mental is the most important because this is what leads us to the world of self-knowledge. Without my mental level, I will not understand self-knowledge. I can't possibly understand it. This is why children don't really grasp the idea of self-knowledge. They understand right and wrong because we tell them what's right and wrong, but they don't have the aspect of, oh, how is this going to affect me? How can I change my behavior? You know, when we tell our kids to say you're sorry, we're with the intention of forgiveness and cleaning. They're just saying words, I'm sorry. It means nothing to them. So that's why when we cross over in the mental, when our mental capacity really begins to expand and explode, then we conceive what self-knowledge is. So self-knowledge is very important. It's a product of, or we have access from the mental level. As I recall every event, I literally am disclosing something about myself. So every event I recall, I'm learning something about me again. Anita, air, please. Thank you. Meditation is truly the greatest tool for self-knowledge. Now, I've often talked about meditation. I love the idea of meditation. Unfortunately, some people perceive meditation as the spiritual thing. You know, you sit in a lotus position and you chant a mantra, or you just monitor your breathing. But there's so much more to meditation. Meditation is truly the controlling of my mind. It's the art and practice of controlling my mind. If you've ever attempted meditation, your greatest adversary is your mind. You're wandering here and wandering there and thinking about what you're going to make for dinner, or the email that you have to send out, or the latest book that you read, or the fact that you keep gaining weight. Sorry, that's me. So, but that's what happens when we do with our mind. So that's really what meditation is, controlling my mind. What are the benefits of controlling my mind? This leads me to self-knowledge. If I can control my thinking, then I would be in control of my thoughts. That makes sense. And if I'm in control of my thoughts, then I'm in control of my actions. And if I'm in control of my actions, I'm in control of my behavior. God bless you. Oh, that was a cough. If I'm in control of my behavior, then I'm in control of the way I interact with one another. If I can control that, then I have the ability to transform myself in any event. I don't have to take personal offense. I don't have to get angry, fearful. I can transform it, transcend it. If I transcend myself with self-knowledge. All of that's capable by controlling my thinking. So right there is the first struggle or obstacle that we have for self-knowledge. My mind. That's my first struggle. Now, it's not an easy task, as I've already mentioned this. Once I understand myself, so what? This is a good question. So once I understand myself, okay, I'm judgmental. Okay, so everybody else is, so what? Now that I know I'm judgmental, woohoo, let's have a party. What do I do next? I mean, that's self-knowledge. Self-knowledge is I've now discovered that I'm judgmental. Okay. Some people stop there. They just discover what they are, and that's it. Oh, that's good enough. Woo, I can move on. Obviously, there's more to this. I once had a client, I kid you not, I once had a client look me square in the eyes, and he said to me, well, why should I improve? I'm a good employee. I'm doing what they hired me to do. Why do I have to do better? I kind of sat there for a moment, a little bewildered, and then I thought, well, he has a point. Why does he have to get better? If he's getting paid to do the job that he's doing and he's doing it, he doesn't really have to get better. It's the first time I was actually confronted with the concept of not wanting to evolve or expand or to increase ourselves. He wasn't wrong. It was a different point of view, truly, just a different point of view, but it took me back for a moment. And then that's when I thought, well, what is the point of self-knowledge? Why do I want to expand? Why do I want to continue on forward, expanding the path of self-knowledge that we talk about in Omega? The little blurb that went out today, I mentioned that Omega's been around since '78. So what is that? We're coming on 30 years just about, or 40 years? Just about 40 years now of doing this program. 40 years of self-knowledge. And of course, we're not the ones who originated self-knowledge. It's been taught generations it's been taught. History, centuries, people have talked about self-knowledge. I think George really connected with something though when he thought about the idea of self-knowledge, of becoming aware, not just for yourself. George's self-knowledge was becoming aware so we can make a contribution. Not every self-knowledge individual talks about that. Many people do, but that is a thought process. I don't have to really make a contribution to anybody. I can even just make a contribution to myself, which there would actually make a contribution, but I don't have to make a conscious effort. Anyway, that was George's take on self-knowledge. The idea of what he wanted to do was to make a contribution, becoming aware, and how can I be better? How can I be a better human being? How can I make a better contribution? How do I make my interactions with a higher vibration? Torquem Saradarium talked about vibration a great deal as well. So, once I'm aware of these things, I believe it's my responsibility to adjust anything that I feel is out of alignment with me. So I'm aware I'm judgmental. Okay, if being judgmental is not something I want to be, then I have to adjust myself so I'm not judgmental. There's certain tasks and techniques that I can work on to not be judgmental. Am I successful? I'm still here. So no. As a matter of fact, I had a little, not meltdown, but I had a little struggle yesterday on judgment, and I was fully aware I was being judgmental, which was part of the struggle. I knew I was being judgmental, and I knew I didn't want to be judgmental, but I was having trouble understanding the thing I was being judgmental about. So it left me in a bit of a struggle there. But at least I had the awareness that I was being judgmental rather than just reactionary, which is the thing that we want to do. We often state in the classroom that self-knowledge leads us to self-awareness. And of course, then I believe self-awareness leads me to personal responsibility. And this is where people stop. They don't want to be responsible. It's too difficult, too hard. What do you mean I'm responsible for my pain? What do you mean I'm the reason why I'm suffering? That's not true. So we stop. We don't want to take that. No, somebody else's fault. We like to do the blame. And once I understand personal responsibility, and I understand that it's up to me to change the way I believe, the way I interact, then it becomes a desire to change. So I have the awareness, I discover it's personal responsibility, and once I have the responsibility, then I have that desire to change. It's my responsibility. Well, yeah, of course I want to do it. That's something I want to do naturally. Not naturally, but yes, let's say enthusiastically, I jump in there. So as I've said this before, as being a judgmental individual, I do not wish to be judgmental, therefore, it's up to me to not be judgmental. It's my responsibility to stop the judgment, nobody else's. Not my husband's, not my children's, not my family's, not my clients, not my teachers. It's my responsibility to not be judgmental. A very popular question, well, it sounds easy, but it's not, you know that. So there's a very popular question. What do we align ourselves with? I think that's a good question to consider. What do I align myself with? Day in and day out, as I'm living my life, am I aligning myself with my code of ethics, with a sense of morality? Am I aligning myself to what my husband wants me to do, or my father or mother want me to do? Am I aligning myself to what my children want? I think it's a valid question to ask myself. What am I aligning myself to? I think it's important to understand that. If I'm not clear on where I'm going, how do I know I get there, and will I stay on task? If I don't really know what I'm looking for, I don't have to keep going forward. I can go a little this way, I can go a little that way. I can step back, I can go to sleep for a while if I want to, solitaire. So what do I keep myself on alignment with? Now, everybody has their own sense of alignment, naturally. I can't say that what I'm aligned to, you're aligned to, and what you're aligned to, I'm aligned to. But I do believe it comes down to a moral code. It really comes down to a code of morality. Everybody has their own moral code. Now, there are some people who've had a very hard life, and therefore their moral code is a little different. Like a doggy, I almost did a doggy word, like a New Yorker. But a dog-eat-dog world, you know, you take what you can, fight for what you want. There's some people who believe that. There's nothing wrong with that because that's their moral code. Then there are some people who have a little bit more of a spiritual moral code. Some people who are more ethical. There's no room for movement there. So everyone has their own little moral code to live by. Returning to the quote, where I said earlier, without self-knowledge, without understanding the working functions of this machine, man cannot be free. He cannot govern himself, and he will always remain a slave. George Gurdjieff indicates that self-knowledge leads us to freedom, which I agree with. Self-knowledge leads us to freedom. Now, who is Gurdjieff? Gurdjieff was an influential early in the 20th century. He was considered a mystic, a philosopher, a spiritual teacher, and a composer. He taught that most human beings, I'm going to read this because this is really beautiful, most human beings do not possess a unified mind, body, and emotion consciousness. So in other words, most of us are not aligned between my physical, my emotional, and mental. We have different alignments, and we're out of alignment. Therefore, we live our lives in a state of a hypnotic waking sleep. So I'm like sleepwalking. So I'm walking around and I'm not fully aware. It's kind of like the illustration that we often use when you're driving in your car and you're going to work, let's say, someplace that you typically go to all the time. 9 times out of 10, or you may have the experience when you show up, you go, how did I get here? Like, whoa, did I just go through the stoplight? Like we come aware that we weren't aware while we were driving. That's habitual. We can do that. We can operate without being fully present. So the waking sleep makes sense. I'm walking around and I'm not fully present to what I'm doing. So he calls that the waking sleep. He says it is possible to transcend to a higher state of consciousness and achieve full human potential, meaning everything can be alignment and more. Higher consciousness would be above the lower self. Physical, emotional, mental would be considered the lower self. The spiritual and all other aspects would be the higher self. Gurdjieff describes a method attaining to do so, calling the discipline the work. This is where the work came from, the term the work. You've heard me speak about it. George said it often, the work. This is the work. And what he meant by the work means working on oneself. Not working on your spouse or your children or your family members or your coworkers or your boss, though many of us would like to. It's not. We work on ourselves. So working on ourselves. According to his principles and instructions, Gurdjieff's method for awakening one's consciousness unites the methods of yogis, and thus he referred to it as the fourth way, meaning it's beyond the physical, emotional, mental. The fourth would be connection to the spirit. So it's working on ourselves. That's all I really want to introduce about the fourth way. There's so much more. It's such a vast subject. George Adair introduced me to Gurdjieff way back in the 90s. This is where I discovered the practice of self-observation. Self-observation means I'm aware of myself. So in the classroom, we say, close your eyes. How do you feel? Become aware of how you're feeling. That's self-observation. No judgment. We just observe ourselves. I'm hot. I'm tired. That was annoying. That was exciting. Oh, wow. I didn't know that about myself. All of that is self-awareness, observation, self-knowledge. So we're actually doing it in the classroom. You just don't know we're doing it in a little hidden way. So when we have the self-observation, it's most important to have it without judgment. Now, as I said, self-observation, not others. We observe. Sometimes we love to observe others and expose them. Hey, did you know this is what you're doing? I got some feedback for you. And we love to fix and expose other people. I'm going to be a mirror for you. And without them asking, which can be a bit harmful. It's funny how we love to expose others, but we don't want to be exposed. Like, what is that about? Like, is it a power trip or something? Look what I can see about you, but not really about me. So I think that's ironic, funny, human beings that we do. So most of the time when we say to somebody, look, this is what you're doing, and we have the hopes that they're going to grow, there is no growth. Usually a fight starts. So don't do that. Just ask for feedback. If you can't do it, don't. I wouldn't do that at all. The idea is presented. If I have the ability to observe myself in any moment's notice, if I can observe myself, then I can alter my words and actions. And I would end up in control of myself and not at the mercy of my lower self. Now, as I've already indicated, the lower self, the lower realm, that's the physical, emotional, and mental, and oftentimes it's ruled by our emotions. It's ruled by our emotions. What do I feel? At this moment, how do I feel? My appetites, my addictions, my habits, all of that is emotional. Everything that I have in my life is emotionally based on likes. I don't like water, but I'm drinking it because I know it's necessary to drink. But chocolate, you got me there. Starbucks, of course, we all know that. I own stock in that store. So when I'm led by my likes, I'm habitual. So much so that I could drive the car and not even become aware of where I'm going. The benefit of self-knowledge ultimately leads me to freedom, which means I'm not a slave. I'm not a slave to my habits. I'm not a slave to my addiction. I'm not a slave to my desires. I'm not a slave to my emotion. If I'm not a slave, stop kicking my camera. We're not having an earthquake. It's just Megan. It's okay. The next earthquake will call Megan. How's that? So I would no longer be a slave to my lower self. I become pure love, unconditional love. I learn forgiveness. I learn compassion, understanding, and patience. All of that comes from self-knowledge. When I learn that, then I'm free to become that. They all exist on the higher level. They do not exist on the lower level. It's all up on the higher level that we're searching for. So this doesn't mean that I endure a pain just to endure the pain. Pain's going to happen. George always used to say, if it exists, it has value. So if I'm struggling with something, it has value. There's something in the pain or the event that I'm going through that's providing me an opportunity to learn something about myself. Most of us want to just delete it, erase it, pretend it didn't happen, and run away. That doesn't help me. Every obstacle is in front of me to help refine me. If you've ever seen gemstones, anybody's ever seen a gemstone that was raw? Most of us see gemstones, they're nice and polished, but we often don't know what goes on to make that gemstone polished and pretty. It's actually thrown in a tumbler, they call it, with other rocks and material, and they bounce around each other. It's very rough until they finally get to a place where it's smoothed out, and then of course you take the sander and whatnot. But the idea that you're bounced around and jumbled around with all these other obstacles helps refine us and smooth us. Wouldn't that be a good picture if that's what's happening? Every time something occurs in my life, oh, I'm a gemstone in the tumbler. That would be a nice thing to remember, but we don't. Why is this happening to me? And stress and panic and upset and fear and arguments and so on and so forth. So it's been my experience that when I discover something about myself, I often do not feel joy. A little disappointment, a little perhaps upset, or maybe even embarrassment, like, oh gosh, I can't believe I'm still doing that. But I don't go, oh, that was painful, yay! I haven't achieved that experience yet. Most of the time, it's the work it through, and then finally I'll get to the place, well, I'm glad that's over. And what did I learn about myself? I learned a while ago to ask myself, every time some event occurs, to ask myself, did I learn anything? Because I'm afraid if I didn't learn anything, it's going to repeat itself. So I want to make sure I learn it first so it doesn't come back. Although sometimes it does come back with a vengeance. Didn't really quite get it. So it's been my experience, as I said, I don't really enjoy discovering things. After all the years of working on myself, sometimes I feel like I haven't even moved an inch. Like I look back and think, seriously, this again? And it can be very disheartening. It really can. When you think you're working hard and all of a sudden you go, I'm still being judgmental. Well, that's delightful. I'm picking on judgment just because I know a lot of people know that I'm not judgmental, really. That was supposed to be funny, people. Thank you for laughing. It is the biggest one that I deal with, I will say that. The thing about it when it comes to this, I get upset, then I think, why bother? I can't change. And I actually see this in other people. They think, forget it, it's not worth it. It's not happening. It's not happening fast enough. They're not seeing the product of their toils. Forget it, I don't want to do this anymore. I actually see this a lot with people practicing meditation. You know, they'll sit for like 10 minutes. Oh, forget it, I can't do it. They walk away. I'm like, people, years, it takes years. You have to understand when you're about to start practicing meditation, you don't get it the first try or the second. It's going to be years before you actually find that state of peace, inner peace that we're searching for. So, complaining, of course. I once had a very wise teacher who said to me, if everything we do in this lifetime will affect the next lifetime, then why wouldn't we do everything that we could do now to ensure the next lifetime will be a brighter future? And my response was, I want a brighter future now. I don't want it then. I want it now. You know, we went round and round about that. I get it. This was when I was understanding karma, the hermetic principles of rhythm and polarity. I get it. I understand that. But I want it now. I don't want to wait. So that's the idea about patience. It's kind of funny. I am a very patient woman, except when it comes to me. My own growth, I want, let's go. But others, I'm totally patient on, take your time, not a problem. So instant gratification, I really believe this statement. Instant gratification destroys self-knowledge. Because because I want it now, so I'm not actually taking the time to understand. Oh, this is it. And I think, oh, I understand it now, and I move on. So I may not even scratch the surface, and I'm satisfied with it, and I'm moving on, when there could be so much more to discover about myself. This is why I like to reread books, because every time I reread a book that I really love, I learn something new, because I'm reading it with a different set of eyes, a different set of awareness. The next time I read it, I'll look and go, gosh, why did I highlight that section? This section is much better. So I started doing different highlighted so I'd know where I was, but then I forgot which color I started on. But it's nice to see my thought form of where I was at one section and then where I was again at another time that I read it. So the idea that instant gratification, that's going to destroy my self-knowledge. Some people don't want to put the time or effort or the energy into discovering themselves. It takes too long. I heard the phrases, I'm sure you've heard these, Rome wasn't built in a day, God bless you. Rome wasn't built in a day, the Grand Canyon just didn't happen. And then my all-time favorite one, all good things come to those who wait. I'm still waiting. I'm kidding. But these are things, we've all known about these things, these phrases, and they're all little gems to let us know it takes time. Awareness takes time. And we can become aware on so many different levels, not just one level. There's so many other levels that we have on awareness. I was watching this movie one time. I'll tell you the movie. It was called Divergent. I'm sure most of you have seen Divergent. It's 6 fractions? Factions, thank you. There's different groups of people that are broken up in the city of Chicago. It's in the future. And one group is the Servient group, another one is the logical group, another one is the joyful, happy-go-lucky group, another one is the truthful group. I'm not going to remember all of them, but the last one is the courageous group. They're called Dauntless. So we're watching this movie, and naturally at the end I'm like, oh yeah, of course, I'm dauntless. Of course I am. Like any movie, I always identify with the strong, heroic, yeah, that's me, I could do that. And then I sat there and thought, if I actually put myself in those shoes, I wouldn't even last a day. I mean, they're climbing the outside of buildings and jumping off of trains. No, thank you. So even though I have this perception that I'm this great, courageous individual, in all honesty, I'm not. That's good self-awareness. I'm being real and understanding. I'm not portraying a fake Anne-Marie. What I'm portraying is, wow, I'm not as courageous as I think I am. I am courageous. There are times when I do understand courage, love taking risks, love the benefit of risks, but I'm not as courageous as the people up on that screen. I would never pick up a gun and start shooting people. Well, that might probably be a moral thing as well. But I know I'm not in that part right there. So that's a good awareness to have. Truth be told, as I said, if I step into their shoes, I probably wouldn't be able to fill them. Here's another really funny story. Recently, there's a YouTube video of a whale that had meandered into a marina, and it was swimming down where all of the slips where the boats are, and there's people on the piers. And it's a huge whale. I don't know what kind of whale it is. It's huge. At first I thought it was an orca because it had white underneath its, not wings, fins. Under its fins it had white, but it wasn't. It looked like a blue whale or a sperm whale. It was big. It was a big whale. Anyway, as the whale is swimming through, there's people on the piers, and some of the people, as the whale's approaching the pier, they go running away. But there's this one woman on the pier. She sits, she stands, she watches the whale pass her, and then the whale kind of comes back around. She sits down and reaches out and tries to touch the whale. Well, she missed it, but she kept sitting there, and when the tail came around, she grabbed the tail. I thought, oh my God, that's great. And so I posted it, and one of my friends said, haha, Anne-Marie, is that you? And of course it's me. And then I thought, whoa. I remember vaguely being in a kayak with killer whales, and I almost blacked out from fear. So I don't think that would be me reaching out to touch the whale. In reality, no, it wouldn't. But isn't it funny how my first thought was, well, yes, of course, I'd be the one reaching out for the whale. I had to laugh at myself. And then I thought about it a little bit further. In the kayak, it's so much more terrifying because you're in the water with the animal. And a killer whale is much different than this other whale. It's got the fin that looks like a shark. And it does attack people in SeaWorld. But On the pier, I'd probably feel a little bit safer because I was out of the water and I'm on something a little bit more sturdy. So I'm not sure. Especially knowing that I've had the fear of the orcas, I don't know, but I may push myself to try to, if that was me, I would push myself. Now this is really funny. So I've had this dialogue in my head, this video was 2 days ago, and I'm still rambling about whether or not I'm courageous enough to touch the whale. So that's me struggling with the lack of courage that I think I have. Wanting to believe I'm a courageous person, and I may not be that courageous. And then I also think it's also the image, because people know I'm courageous. I'm the skydiver, I'm the rappeller, I'm the zip liner, I'm the one that'll do that. So I don't want them to think I'm not courageous about touching Mr. Whale in the pool, in the marina. Anyway, the idea about this all leads me back to self-knowledge. It's a really simple example of self-knowledge. So what does it mean? Simple. I'm not as courageous as I think I am. Okay, what do I do with it? So now that I'm aware that I'm not as courageous as I think I am, then what do I do with that? That's self-knowledge. The truth about myself, and then it gives me a point of origin. So if this is my point of origin, I'm not courageous, and I have a destination of being courageous, well then there's work to be done. Naturally, I put myself in places where I have to be courageous. So there's work to be done. So this is important. I must have a point of origin, where I am, and a point of destination, where I wish to be. That's the alignment that I talked about earlier. I must be in alignment with the goal, destination, my desire, the horizon, wherever I'm headed. Wherever this path is leading, there's got to be a horizon or something I'm headed to. So self-knowledge gives me a point of origin. Discovering where I am. The truth about me. What's that phrase? The truth will set you free? That makes total sense now. The truth will set me free. The truth about me sets me free so that I can now act accordingly and not proceed with a false image of myself. If I were to proceed with a false image of myself, I would not truly reach my destination. That false image will eventually crumble. That false image can only take me so far. I read this story about a gentleman who applied for a job, and it was above something he's never done before, but he lied and pretended that he did. I think it was a manager at a department store or something. He didn't even last a month because he didn't know what he was doing. That's a good illustration of a false illusion. He stayed on and took a demotion and became an assistant manager and stayed there for a year and learned how to be an efficient manager, and then he moved up to management level. But a false image of myself is only destructive. It will not proceed forward. So all of us who want to pretend that we have this awareness and and if you don't have it, it does nothing for you. Really, the only reward you'll have is the praise you get at that moment that you proceed to tell people, look how wonderful I am. That's pretty much it on that one. So when it comes to self-knowledge, the truth about myself, as I said, it will only set me free. It will set me free once I discover this. As I said, it's not an easy task. Sorry, I lost my... One moment, please. I lost my point of origin. If I wish to develop courage, then I have to place myself in areas of courage, not in my head. So as I said, 2 days I'm already reliving the whale story, putting myself there, thinking I'm courageous. I'm not. It never happened. It's just in my head. So if I want to develop courage, it means I go out in the world and I start doing things courageously. Put myself in instances where I have to have courage, not just here. Now, I don't want to discount the mind. My mind is very beneficial. I need my mind. Obviously, we need our mind to operate in the world. I need my mind to discover the self-knowledge, the things that I am, as well as the things that I'm not. This is very important. It's equally important to know what I can do and what I can't do. There are philosophies, there are some philosophies out there that say, oh, you could do anything. But that's not true. I'm 5'2". I cannot jump 20 feet. I can't vertical. I physically am incapable. I don't have the structure of doing it. So this idea that we can do anything is a false illusion. It's a good inspiration to help kids want to move forward, but be real. If you're not good at something or if you're incapable of doing it, recognize that. Recognize your limits. when we recognize our limits, I also recognize my potential for capacity, expanding my capacity. If I recognize that, for example, I was a slow reader at a very early age in first grade, I actually had trouble reading. I had to have a special teacher sit next to me, which is very funny because I love to read. But back then I didn't. I couldn't comprehend it. I didn't understand. And I remember sitting there looking at the words, not understanding that it was words put together to make a sentence. And it was like, what happened is the teacher said to me, Anne-Marie, it's just like talking. So the words are someone talking back to you. When she said that, I understood. Oh, because I didn't understand what are the words for, and like I did, my little mind just couldn't comprehend. But when she said it's like talking, that's when I realized, oh, someone's talking back to me. So it's me not just repeating something, someone's having a conversation back to me. And that's the way I've always read. 7 years old, I've always read this way. Now, every author I pick up, I'm having a conversation with that author. And that's probably why I enjoy reading so much, because I feel like I'm in the actual interaction of the author. Love the idea that my teacher taught me that. I wish I could remember who she was. She was just a student teacher. She was helping my first grade teacher, but that really changed so at that moment, as a child, I didn't understand. My limit was, I can't read. But through the help of assistance of another individual, I discovered I could read. So this is helpful as well. Once I discover something about myself, and I'm limited, it's absolutely acceptable to go and ask for help. You don't have to do this on your own. If you're struggling and you can't do it, most likely we'll give up. But asking for help, it doesn't mean we're weak. Some of us perceive that as weak. No, I can do that. I don't need your help. It's funny how we need help. I think almost everybody needs help on the planet, but we're terrified to ask each other. Can you just help me out? Nobody wants to help. No, I can do it. Even, I have this one client, this company, a lot of the supervisors are very overwhelmed. They're over their head. But every time their managers or their supervisors come to them and say, hey, do you need help? No, I got it. I know they're overwhelmed because I'm talking to them. But they say, nope. So I say to them, why do you say no when help is offered? Oh, I don't want them to think I can't do my job. You can't do your job. You're going to sink unless you get help. It's funny how we just take that, nope, I don't need help. I can do it. Okay. And then you have on the flip side people who are constantly wanting to help you and never letting you do anything. That's the opposite side. So there's got to be an equal balance. Please don't find somebody who's always going to do everything for you, because then you're not going to discover anything about yourself either. You'll discover what they discover about you. So there's got to be an equal balance. What we can do, hopefully mostly what we can do, and then when we need help, ask for help. Help is always available for us. It's been my experience that anytime I've needed help, it seems to always be there. I don't always have the, hey, I need help. That's not the top thing. I'm a very strong-willed individual, so I want to try it for myself. It's not that I don't need anybody. It's more, I want to try it for myself. Let me fail first, and then I'll ask for help. That's just been my philosophy. There are some people who, well, let me help you so you don't fail. But I don't mind failing. I don't care. If I fail, I fail. But at least I learned something. So that's me. That's my. And sometimes people don't understand that. Well, why won't you let me help you? You can help me after I fail, okay? And that never seems to go well either. So the idea of self-knowledge is learning what I can and what I cannot do. Doesn't mean I'm weak because I discover things I can't do. It doesn't mean that I'm weak because I ask for assistance. It actually takes great courage to ask for assistance, especially if it's an intimate thing or something I've been struggling with for a while and I might feel embarrassed about. I can't believe I've been holding on to this for years, and can you help me? But anyway, either one of those can be of assistance to us. Now, I love the word knowledge. Back to the idea of self-knowledge. Knowledge. I went and looked at the dictionary about knowledge. Knowledge says it's what is learned, understood, or what I'm aware of. So my knowledge is what I've learned, what I understand, and what I'm aware of. So I have knowledge of this room. I have knowledge that there's 1, 2, 3. There are 4 walls. It's just in a strange position. But there's 4 walls. There's knowledge of the beams and the wood and the ceiling. I'm knowledge of all the people who are sitting in the chairs. I'm aware of the video, Facebook people. I'm aware of the whiteboard in the back, and I'm aware. So all of this is awareness and knowledge. But what does it do for me? That's a question. What does it do for me? So here I am. I'm aware of the room I'm in. I'm aware of the background, and I'm aware of standing here. But so what? If I'm thinking about self-knowledge, how do I apply this? What do I learn? So I can learn, well, I can stand in front of a room full of people and discuss the topic of self-knowledge. But this is just actual physical. It's the lowest aspect of me. Then if I move up to the emotional, what am I aware emotionally? Well, emotionally, I feel peaceful. I'm enjoying myself. I'm grateful. I'm filled with gratitude that so many of you came out tonight. I'm grateful people are watching us. That's emotional. And then I can go to mental. What am I mentally aware of? Of course, that goes back to the facts and figures and so on. But if I can jump from that and go to the spiritual aspect, what am I aware of there? Self-knowledge. How do I feel self-knowledge? What am I aware of myself? Well, on the spiritual aspect, I would say I'm aware, I have an opportunity to discuss a topic that most people don't discuss perhaps, or I have an opportunity to make a contribution. So on that aspect, my self-knowledge, my awareness would be, at this moment, I am aware I can make a contribution. Not am, I can. I have an opportunity to, not guaranteed. Of course, we know nothing is guaranteed. But that's the simple illustration of doing self-knowledge. I could do my physical, my emotional, and my mental, and then I jump it over to something higher. What would be a higher thing? Is this in alignment with my desire of my life? Absolutely, 100%. So I could also say, I'm in alignment right now. At this moment, I feel in alignment. So that's what I would ask you to do right now. Just close your eyes for a moment and think about your awareness. Do the simple one first. Do the physical. So become physically aware of yourself, aware of your toes, your shoes, the chair that you're sitting in. Become aware of the temperature in the room. Aware of your body if you're feeling tired, rested, excited, overwhelmed, disappointed, anything. Just become aware of anything. Do your emotions as well. I talked a little bit about that. Do you feel a little joy, peace, happiness, fear? Go to your mind now. Are you processing this? As I'm speaking, is your mind rambling and you're off running onto different thoughts? Or are you staying focused and clear? Then take it the step further. What can you learn about yourself right now? Self-knowledge, what can you learn right now about yourself? Pick one thing that you can learn about yourself. All right, open your eyes. Let me hear it. Who came up with one thing about themselves that they learned? Yes.
I'm on the right path.
You're on the right path?
Yes.
Excellent. That's a good one. Yes, sir.
I'm freezing.
You're freezing, as always. Yes, ma'am.
I'm capable.
You're capable. Wonderful. Anyone else? On something you became aware of? I know on Facebook you can do it, but I can't see the comments, so go ahead and write your comments. Thank you. But you see, that's how it works. It takes that quick little moment, and I did it pretty fast, but it really takes a moment to think about what my awareness is. And the awareness doesn't have to be mind-blowing. It could be something as simple as I'm cold, or I'm on the right path, or I'm capable. It could be something like that. We don't have to have earth-shattering awarenesses. The concept, though, is to constantly observe ourselves, and this is what Gurdjieff taught, to be the observer. He actually took it one step further. He said, if I'm sitting here and I'm observing myself, who is the part of me that's observing? Because there's a part of me that's observing myself. So who's that part? That's a very good question to contemplate, which in the Fourth Way teachings you do a lot about that. So it's all about the observation without judgment. So in conclusion, what I come down to, I finally believe that eventually I hope to be aware. So I'm aware that I judge now. And at this time, as I said yesterday, I think it was, I was having the struggle. I knew I was judging and I knew I wasn't understanding. And I watched myself judging, and I didn't want to judge, but I knew I was judging. And then I finally came to the result of not judging. I finally got that. Eventually, I'd like to get to the point that I could be aware before I judge and then choose not to judge. That would be beautiful. That would be a great goal. If I could do that, then I would naturally choose not to judge. I would do that. There's a great line in the movie Contact, if anyone has ever seen that. The dad is talking to small Jodie Foster as she's trying to dial in on her antenna, and he says, "Small moves, Ellie, small moves." And that's what I think about my awareness. It's all small moves, just a little bit of a time. As I said, finally I want to mention that I believe in the importance of self-knowledge is its individual choice. So self-knowledge is all an individual choice. I'm well aware that not everybody on this planet wants to achieve a state of self-mastery. I'm aware some people just want to kick back and let somebody else do it. Totally got it. No judgment there. I'm aware that there's many different levels. Not everybody wants personal responsibility. For me, what are the rewards? Well, working on myself, I've discovered that I have far more peace in my life now than I did when I was unconscious and unaware, reactive individual. I'm very aware of that. I walked into this realm at the age of 27. I am far more peaceful today than I was at the age of 27. I also am aware that I have much more acceptance and love and compassion in my life now than I did back then. I also feel more connected to people, not only just people, but I feel more connected to life than I did back then. All of that to me is a result of self-knowledge. I feel like we're all here on the planet and we all walk our own certain path. And for me, the more self-knowledge I have, the clearer my path is. For me, the clearer my path is. So the journey for self-knowledge, the reward obviously is for everyone else. Some of you may have different rewards that you experience in your life, but I do feel like that self-knowledge is one venue that I can travel where there is a reward. It's not something just to do. There is benefit to do it. And that's all I have. Any questions this evening before I pass you off? No? Oh, yes, I do.
How do you spell
Gurdjieff? Certainly. Gurdjieff's name is G as in George, U as in utter, R as in Robert, D as in dog, J as in Jeff, I as in
Indigo.
Indigo, thank you. E as in Edward, F as in Frank, and F as in Frank again. Yes, you're quite welcome. Anyone else? What was that, Mark? You're pointing. Oh, October.
Yeah, you didn't mention it at the beginning, so maybe you can mention it at the end.
Sorry, I forgot to mention the Omega 1. The next Omega 1 is September 15th to the 17th. We had a really delightful class in July. I don't know, we were close to 30 people on that one. And then the Omega 2 is the 28th, October 1st. So it's the Omega 1, September 15th to the 17th. The Omega 2 is September 28th to October 1st. Those are the next two programs that are available, as well as the satsang. And again, you don't need to Omega graduate to do a satsang. Anybody can attend that program. So thank you very much. I appreciate all of you for coming out tonight, and thank you for everyone joining us on Facebook. I look forward to seeing you, not in person, but seeing you Wednesday the 23rd, when our topic will be, does anybody know what it was? 10 steps for expansion. These are George's little nuggets that he collected, about 10 steps that we can do to help expand ourselves. Thank you very much for coming out this evening. I will see you in 2 weeks. Bye now. Bye.